Greetings folks, today we are gonna talk about Chains of Freedom, which is not your usual turn tactical game. Resources are gonna be extremely scarce, there is no self-healing or rest after battles, and Chain of Freedom will let you experience the feeling of, oh wow, I just won this battle, however I lost the war, a complete Pyrrhic victory. Brute force is the least desirable outcome, clever positioning, use of in-game mechanics, and sometimes luck. Yes, because there is still a chance to miss even with your best shot, will decide your survival. The game's tutorial is very well planned. It doesn't hit you in the face with a brick, but quickly lets you understand that you should not get too cocky and use the in-game stealth mechanics when possible, even at the cost of not getting any rewards. You know, the opportunity cost of a battle, sometimes it's just not worth it. As well as to use clever positioning in a desirable way before engaging the enemy. Cover is everything, however cover can be outflanked, your fighter can be marked and sniped from above. And is it really a good idea to use your precious few explosive in that situation? It depends. On lower difficulty the game is more forgiving and you can recover from mistakes. Hell, you can even resurrect your characters within 2 or 3 turns depending on the setting. However, on hard difficulty, there is the added pressure of a maximum turn limit for each encounter. This is a very problematic design choice, and it should have been a separate option, rather than being the standard. This is how brutal the game is. Furthermore, don't expect an XCOM game. You cannot make your own characters, and the character selection is limited, and so its customization. There is no such thing as skill points or specialization of any kind. Any character can equip any weapon, as there are no classes. In virtually every fight you are gonna be outnumbered and outgunned, even although sometimes AI acts weird and you can exploit those lapses in judgment. Crafting is not extremely complex, pretty much you just go to a spot that is blue and press a button. But it's fundamental to keep up with your healing kits and to produce ammos and bombs. The games have a very good area design, not overly large, but combined with the graphics, it sets a very good tone and presentation. Weapon variety is also a bit limited. You got your usual division between automatic rifles, pistols, heavy weapons, crossbow, shotgun, and melee. However, the number of available weapons is limited. Since you are also constricted by your ammunition, you are incentivized to build around your ammo reserves without going too much in a single direction. Sometimes it's also hard to decide if you should grid that last kill with melee or just use a bullet. You will have to reload your save files many times because sometimes RNG really is not on your side. To keep yourself alive, well, beside the health you also have armor, which is a consumable ballistic vest. You should use plenty on at least the character that you're planning to put in the front line. Ammunition management can be quite frustrating. Any bullet you shoot is a bullet lost. But won't this cause melee to be super OP? Well, you're also limited on the number of health kits you can have and bandages, as you do not regen health, like you need to balance out all your sources. So nothing is too powerful in any direction. Killed enemies will drop ammunition. However, the number of these drops depends on the difficulty. If you play on easy, well, the game becomes much more intensive toward the resource management. If you play on normal on hard, there are gonna be much less drops. Even the stealth mechanic that the game prompts you to use is just quite basic. You don't have takedowns or silent execution. It's more of a small mini game where you avoid the line of sight of the enemy, which can be broken by pretty much any object. Even if it's smaller than your characters, like a pole, which is pretty funny, to be fair. A bit disappointing, however, to me was the pace of this game, because by design there is no world map, no base building, traveling or survival skills. So from encounter to encounter following a linear story. As your characters do not level up, the main form of customization is the ability to use crystals and to lock crystal slots for certain characters. This is, however, rather limited. and there are other problems as well, but I don't want to delve into spoilers. The story is, however, quite interesting. It delivers a mixture of Tiberium Sun, Red Alert, Command and Conquer, Resident Evil. If this makes sense to you, good. Otherwise, this is gonna be a wild ride. The events in this game are set in Eastern Europe. In this game, the world has been gripped by an infection called Eden that caused social and worldwide collapse. Eden are these weird red crystals that assimilate people and create monsters and mutations. You take the role of Fidel, an operative of the Sovereign, a form of heavy militarized and quasi-religious omnipotent world government that is fighting against heretics, which are pretty much anybody that doesn't follow sovereign rules, and even refusal to collaborate when asked gently by sovereign to give them all your ammunition. Well, then you need to die. Fidel and his squad are peacekeepers, so they are immune to the infection thanks to the vaccine. They are sent on a mission to liberate someone from his life. The story features themes such as corruption, mind control, and more political twist. Even the name Chains of Freedom is kinda poetic in a way. Naturally, without going too much into spoilers, because this is technically a story game, I have a confession. If the story didn't appeal to me, I would have probably not played this game. Because, wow, I really like to reload a fight 3 times to have the best possible return of investment. Kinda felt like a Bitcoin trader sometimes, watching the graph going down and up on my mind based on RNG. On a serious note, most of the time I reloaded was because of my mistakes. Voice acting is solid, and I really like the writing of the dialogues. The game is not perfect, however, and I would consider this inferior to Wasteland 2, and it's too far different from XCOM to even compare it to it. There is also very little room for growth, narrative-wise, despite the interesting setting, as most of the lore and tidbits of plot are delivered through cutscene or short lines of dialogues in between trolls through encounters. The game has potential, and it didn't feel overly repetitive. However, as most encounters had their own twists and turns. You had the one where enemies were fighting each other. You had the one where bosses would spawn. However, the problem, in my opinion, is that there is little replayability value. Story doesn't have branching paths, and despite having created a very interesting world with beautiful design area, if you remove the ammo scarcity and the play around scavenging and crafting, there is little new about this. Other annoying elements are the fact that dropped items after the end of fights are not automatically collected. These should have been implemented just as a quality of life, because sometimes you can forget an item, or in my case I even lost some loot because I was too close to the exit of the area after an encounter, and you aren't allowed to go back, so I had to redo that fight. I also didn't notice any major bug or anything that got me stuck, which is good. Should you play Chains of Freedom? On a positive note, this game has a low to mid price point, $25. You cannot expect too much. For the price, the game actually has value. A more fair comparison with this game would be Miasma Chronicles or Mutant Year Zero, and I mean sorta. Did I personally like this game? Sorta. I'm probably not the main audience. I expected something different like Apocalyptic Jagged Alliance. Also, I'm not really good at playing turn-based games when the consequences of my action catch up to me, but it is what it is. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Thank you and see you.